And today I wanted to talk about two things that I think are really important. Again, coming off of this success thing, talk about leadership and things you can continue to do in your life to be successful. And one of them is leaning into fear. Okay, and what do I mean by that? I mean leaning into the things that are uncomfortable and that scare you will get you over the things that are keeping you and holding you back. A couple good quotes here I wrote down. Good one is from Eleanor Roosevelt. She wrote, "Do one thing that scares you every day." And I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, that's one thing that for sure, if that's like we go into the day with that intention of like, okay, here's all the things I'm going to do today. If there's one thing that pops up that you're afraid of doing, for guys in business, it might be calling that guy that you know is maybe a Mr. Big, or you're the guy that has a lot of money, and you're a little nervous about calling him, so he's kind of on your chicken list, right? He's on your scaredy cat list, and so you keep seeing his name there, but you don't call him, because you're afraid. And I think that's one of the greatest things that you could do every day is tackle something that scares you. One thing, just little steps that point you in that direction, and then the next day it's going to be, hey, I already tackled that one thing, and maybe now I can tackle two things, or tackle three things, and then you start to create this habit of being able to lean into anything that scares you and talk to anybody that you might have been in the past intimidated by. So leaning into the things that you're afraid of can help you create more success in your life. Because let me get you guys all to agree on this, which I think we all can, that successful people do the things that unsuccessful people fail to do. Right? But oftentimes the things that unsuccessful people will complain about, the successful people don't see themselves as victims. They see themselves as opportunity makers. Whereas unsuccessful people, they see themselves as waiting for opportunity to come to them. So a couple others here that I think are key, that again, maybe that's tough for some people to get around, is that leaning into, yeah, okay, that's all great, I'm supposed to just tackle this, but what maybe is something deeper that I can hold on to of why I should do this. And I think one of the main things that roots me is feeling that it's my ethical, moral duty and responsibility to be successful. Because I serve nobody well by holding myself back, right? I don't serve my family well. I don't serve my community well. I don't serve my country well. I don't serve anybody well by holding myself back, whether by fear or belief that I'm somehow limited by whatever circumstance around me, right? Being a victim essentially of my surroundings. So that's one thing for me that really holds me and roots me down, is knowing that I have an ethical, moral responsibility and duty, not only to my family, but my community and the people I serve, to go out and work with them, do what I'm supposed to do every day to make my life better, their life better. And sometimes it's, again, causing friction, right? You lean into the things that make you uncomfortable. For example, I'm in finance, right? So if I'm trying to help somebody with their finances, I got to get them out of their world. There are a lot of successful people that are scared shitless every single day. Every single day, going into every single situation, they just know how to deal with it, right? I kid you, no joke. I mean, you talk to some really successful CEOs and stuff that have to do a lot of speaking, and they are terrified. A lot of them are terrified every single time they go up there and talk in front of people. You'll never know it. You'll never know it in how they deliver their polished speech, or in how they talk, and how they can elicit a comedian type candor with people. You'll never know it until you absolutely right. And unless you ask them and get to know them as people, because they're just people too. Because everybody suffers through fear. They just have a handle on it. They just lean into it and embrace it and let it wash over them, to where they look behind and it's just you. There's nothing else there. It's just you. There's no fear. There's nothing. You're just a person in a room with other people. And so, again, back to what I was saying before, ethical, how do they do that? Practice. And a closely held, I think the thing, like I said, for me is they know it's their duty. It's like, how can a soldier go into battle? He's got to be scared shitless. Every single tour, every single battle that guy's got to go into, he's probably scared out of his mind. But it's the ones that embrace fear, and the ones that go, you know what? My duty and moral and ethical responsibility to my family, my country, my community trumps fear. And that is what gets them through it. And for me, that is what gets me through the phone call to Mr. Big, or the encounter with the disgruntled customer that I don't want to have to deal with, but I do, right? Because it's my duty, it's my responsibility. And I think if more people took some ownership in their lives that way and had that responsibility, there'd be more success all around for everybody. For one, there'd be less takers and more givers. But that's another point, another conversation. And another thing I want to talk about fear real quick, and this is Marianne Williamson writes this, so these are her words, but she says, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And again, like I said before, I think that if more people embraced their responsibility and embrace their duty, and that they are lights that can shine brighter for everyone around us, and not kind of put a bowl over the candle and limit the light that can shine, right? Through fear, through self-imposed limitations and what have you. You unconsciously give other people the permission to shine too, right? It's like that shining example of light. So that's my first section. I just wanted to really make sure everybody kind of understood that successful people are afraid, but they learn to embrace it and adopt measures to get over it. Second part is envisioning the outcome of encounters and things that you have to go into every day to create success. So envisioning the outcome. What I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. Again, I feel like most people learn best through examples and stories. So for me, envisioning the outcome of my encounter with a client. So I might be going into an encounter with a client. You're envisioning the outcome of that encounter, right? So if you're trying to get that guy to buy something from you or whatever, the outcome is another, I guess, another tool, and that's why these two I paired together, is another tool along with, feeling a deeper moral, ethical, aside from feeling a moral responsibility to your job, your duties, etc., to your success, envisioning what you want to have happen can also help create more confidence and strength in going into an encounter. So like I said, for example, perhaps I'm meeting with a guy and I know he's got a lot of money, or he's got whatever that I want him to buy something for me, or I want to invest his money, or what have you. Envisioning that encounter and playing through in your mind like a dream, right? Like actually seeing yourself shake the guy's hand, what you're going to say, what he's going to say back. Basically play out the full meeting, storyboard, so to speak, in your mind. And walk through all the things that you're prepared to do with him. And if he says this, here's what you're going to say back. If he says this, here's what you're going to say back. And by having that preparation and mental preparation, you go into that meeting And what's nuts and what I found is you almost unconsciously steer that meeting towards what you wanted. You unconsciously steer the meeting towards what you wanted, where you come out of that going, wow, that meeting happened exactly how I envisioned it. Imagine that. And now again, this doesn't happen all the time, so this isn't like some magic trick that's going to make you millions or shoot you to the top of your corporate ladder. This is just something that successful people do, is they prepare. So I guess envisioning the outcome and preparing for the outcome, they prepare for the outcome. So I don't know about any of you guys in those situations preparing for the outcome. Perhaps you don't have a big corporate job, or you can't get the ladder, climb the ladder. But I would say it's the same thing whether you're starting your own business or dealing with spouses or relatives or family. Any encounter that you're going to have, an encounter with other people, this can be something you do. You envision the outcome of the conversation. You envision the responses that you're going to get in the conversation, and you formulate your best plan of action basically to make sure that whole encounter goes the way that you want it to go. And I think it prepares your mind for that mode versus you bouncing around from task to task and not being so to speak in that mode to handle that encounter. And there's a lot of studies and things out there on productivity and cognitive issues or IQ issues. For example, they say if you're constantly having to jump from say appointment to appointment, and you're in one task you're doing visit or meeting or interview or sales appointment or whatever, and you have been distracted all day by various things. Like first you're in a marketing meeting, then you're working on a project, then you're in this other thing, then you got to go read what Facebook or Twitter has on it, or you're watching a white guy like me in Wisconsin talking on Periscope, and then you got to go into this meeting right away. Your IQ in these studies, your IQ drops by 40 points. 40 points. Your IQ can drop that much. And it's because your brain is not in the mode to handle the encounter, right? It's like putting a car into gear. If you're going to start out in first gear, that's where you should be starting, right? If you're going to be out in fourth gear, you got to shift and maneuver your car and get all this stuff figured out before you get the car moving properly. So it's not as efficient. It doesn't get you the outcomes you want. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you can kind of have some takeaways there, is prepare for the outcome, and then also lean into fear. And as far as leaning into fear, the things you can do, again, making sure you have something rooted in the reason you're doing what you're doing that you're afraid of, is that it's rooted in your moral, ethical duty, responsibility to your family, your country, your employees, your own success, whatever that you can get and rooted, and then go out there and tackle whatever that's afraid of you, and try to do at least one thing a day that you're afraid of, and lean into that fear. So with that, I thank you all for tuning in.